Out of the 588 species of birds that nest or utilize resources in North America at various times in their lives, it was estimated based upon the best projections that were available of climate change and how that's affecting habitat and other changes that are taking place that influence these birds, that approximately 344 of these species are in serious decline. And in fact, by 2080 may not exist any longer in North America. In other words, we're anticipating that there's going to be a very, very serious change in the biodiversity as a result of changes that are taking place in the world today, but which we can see here in the United States. Now, why would we focus particularly on birds? One of the reasons is that birds have very high metabolisms. They have evolved over a very long period of time, and they have developed very intricate relationships with their habitat. And this varies from where they nest, where they feed, what they feed on, the times that they migrate, every aspect of their lives. And this is true of any species, of course, but because birds have evolved such good, close relationships with their habitats, and also because they have a very high metabolism, which means that things that happen in their environment that may influence their metabolism, such as available food or something to that sort, this is reflected very quickly in their reproductive success. And so birds are good indicators. With that as background, let's talk a little bit about my favorite bird. It's a golden-winged warbler. Golden-winged warblers once were present throughout most of Wisconsin. In fact, 70% of the population of golden-winged warblers in the world occur in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Michigan. So this is an area where they spend their summers, they do their reproduction here, and then they go south. Golden-winged warblers go to Central America and northern South America to overwinter, and then come back the following spring and continue and so forth. Well, it turns out that golden-winged warblers are decreasing in terms of their population, probably faster than any other species in North America. The population is going down at approximately 9% per year right now. Now, we've got a perfect storm affecting our birds. In addition to the climate change that's taking place, we also are seeing expanded populations, expanded development, which is beginning to fragment and to erode the habitat for the birds. So the best way for a species to survive through a very stressful period is to have very good habitat in which it can utilize cover and the food resources and so forth that are there. If that habitat is being stressed or fragmented and so forth, this really creates a perfect storm for the bird in terms of their ability to survive. Studies have shown that the loss of biodiversity throughout the world is a serious problem, and there's study after study, indicator after indicator of some of these kinds of problems. So what do we see from birds? We're seeing that birds are simply telling us something that we ought to pay heed to. We ought to take note of the fact that these populations are going down, and that in turn is probably an indicator of loss of other species in other areas, in other habitats, probably throughout the world, particularly at the mid and high latitudes. So why do people not pay more attention? Why are we not more alarmed by these kinds of data, by these kinds of signals that we're getting from the world in which we live? And one of the first things that we should be doing is talking about it. We need to talk about these kinds of things because they're going to affect not so much us, but our children and our grandchildren and many generations to come.
Will it help if neighborhoods work on making habitat, or won't they adapt to this?
The thing that we could do is perhaps preserve some nesting habitat that they require. And many of the birds, such as, indigo buntings, for example, would be an example that comes to mind. Golden-winged warbler would be another one. If we have an opportunity to create an old field kind of environment, or maybe a vacant lot kind of environment where we allow bushes to kind of come in to intermix with some of the herbaceous species and grasses that are there, that would favor some of those birds. But many of the birds that come are very particular about needing relatively undisturbed habitat, spruce fir forest, or you know, large tracts of forest, for example, as is the case with the ovenbird and so forth. So these birds probably need the kind of habitats that we are least able to do in terms of our backyards and neighborhoods. So some birds, yes. Many birds, we probably can't do too much in our backyards and neighborhoods, at least.
In an effort, I guess, to combat climate change to some degree, we're seeing utilities go more and more to large-scale wind turbines, and I'm wondering how that affects birds.
There's no question wind towers do take their toll. At the same time, in saying that, probably the place where we can make the biggest gain in getting off fossil fuels, particularly coal, is in wind generation of electricity. So we have great opportunity there, both onshore and offshore opportunities that we could take advantage of. What's been interesting is that since wind turbines first were developed, the technology has continued to be improved. And now these wind turbines are made bigger and bigger with longer blades and so forth that turn very slow. I don't know if you've seen them, but they turn so slow you think they're not working. They're turning slow enough that birds and bats can now sense and avoid those collisions with the blades with a very high degree of success. That's not to say there isn't some, but there is far less than there was when wind turbines first came out.
The Northwoods is the southernmost range for a lot of northern birds. Awful lot of birds just get down here and otherwise are Canadian birds.
Right.
So with climate change, we're going to be pushing a lot of those birds north. I just wondered if you would give examples of some different species we are very likely to lose in the near future.
In Wisconsin, we have an estimated 244 species that nest in Wisconsin, 244 species. Of those, it's estimated that 50 of them are going to be in jeopardy as a result of climate change and associated changes in habitat and so forth. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to go extinct, but as you suggest, that means their populations are going to be shifting north and out of our area. And so I can't begin off the top of my head to cite those species, but if you think of, you can almost, a mallard duck for the, you think, oh, way, mallard ducks? Mallard ducks may no longer nest in Wisconsin by 2080, according to the models that people have developed. And these are very sophisticated models with some of our best climate scientists involved. And so there are a lot of species that probably will move north and can continue to exist, but which you won't be able to see in this area.